All right, guys, so we got to talk about former President Donald Trump, who appears to be on the campaign trail already, as rumors swirl that he is set to announce his bid to run for president once again in 2024. So that being said, he's been giving speeches around the country, and recently he gave a speech at the America First Policy Institute, an institute that is dedicated to promoting America First policies that I found to be fascinating, okay? As Trump talked about the policy agenda of America First and the direction that he wants this country to go in. And during this speech, Trump at points was being Trump, right? He was being Trump, okay? He was being the guy that, a lot of people in this country fell in love with, right? And at one point in the speech, he was making jokes about transgender people when discussing the topic of transgenders competing in sports, right? Particularly biological men competing against biological women in sports.
And I'll tell you what, if I were ever, I'd be the greatest women's basketball coach in history. Because I don't like LeBron James. I like Michael Jordan much better. But I'd go up to LeBron James. It doesn't matter. I'd say, LeBron, did you ever have any desire to be a woman? Because what I'd love you to do is star on my team that I'm building up. I will have the greatest team in history. They'll never lose. Nobody will come within 70 points of this team. Kevin's saying he can lift it. I don't know about that, Kevin, but that's a lot. 218 pounds, and she got over that weight, and she was going to break it. They put a half an ounce here, half little tiny ring on top of these big barbells, dumbbells. And they go, and she went like this, and she got to break it. Stood for 11 years. And her mother and father are screaming, you got it. You got it, darling. I'm so proud of my girl. Well, she couldn't do it. And then this guy comes along. He's named Alice. And he looks at the weight. World record. We could have put another couple of 100 pounds on. I think he would have lifted it.
And you already know that the mainstream liberal media got triggered by that, right? They got triggered by the jokes that Trump was making. And I want to discuss that and react to one particular member of the media who is super woke, Miss Yamiche Alcindor, who particularly had a meltdown over Trump's speech at the America First Policy Institute. But before I play her meltdown, I want to play some clips of some things that she said in the past so that you guys can get an idea of who she is, okay, as she does have severe Trump derangement syndrome, and she's on the woke train as well, going as far as to compare the Biden administration and his cabinet to the Avengers and superheroes because of how diverse they are. Take a look.
Watched the hearing on set with you and Lester Holt and so many others, and I'm still sort of baffled by the fact that this happened. It's still surreal that people broke into our Capitol and that Donald Trump hasn't been completely excommunicated, not just from the Republican Party, but from the entire political atmosphere.
All of those things are what America's about. It's this melting pot. The other thing I'll just say is I was talking to a Democrat who just said this also felt like the Avengers. It felt like we're being rescued from this craziness that we've all lived through from the last 4 years. And now here are the superheroes to come and save us all.
Yeah, that clip was from when Biden first got elected and he was building his national security team. Okay, fast forward 2 years later, how's that working out? How is the diversity and inclusion Joe Biden administration cabinet, the Avengers, working out for America? Not that great, right? Not that great. But at least Orange Man is out of office, right? That is what people like her are happy about. And she, at the same time, is also fearful of, right, scared to death of the idea of Orange Man being back in office because she had a meltdown over Trump's speech at the America First Policy Institute, probably because she realized that, oh man, this guy can be back in office in the next 2 or 3 years, okay? And she went as far as to called Trump a transphobe for making jokes and talking about the issue of biological men competing against biological women in sports. Take a look.
And what you saw really was what the Republican Party in some ways wants to tell itself it wants to be, which is Mike Pence talking about policy, talking about inflation, talking about the future and not looking back, and what the Republican Party actually is, which is the party of Trump. And you saw former President Trump talking there. He spent some time talking about law and order. I was in the room. He talked about America being a cesspool and talking about our streets. A lot of hyperbole there when it comes to sort of the crime rate here, even though crime is spiking, especially the murder rate across the country. And I should also note that cultural issues were very popular in that room. Former President Trump went on a long rant about transgender Americans, and he used transphobic language. In particular, he was talking about transgender women competing in sports and said that they were men trying to compete against women, which, of course, is not the right way to talk about that issue. But what you saw there was sort of the belly of the beast, the Republican Party that is the donor class, that is the people that are sort of setting the policy agenda. They were also most excited about lies. And I think that really sticks with me because a lot of times we talk about sort of throwing red meat to the base. But this was the part of the party that might possibly have been choosing the next nominee before sort of it became about rallies and big crowds. And they, too, are very much into the lies that President Trump is continuing to spew.
So there's a couple things I would talk about. First, she tries to say that Trump is exaggerating and using hyperbole about the crime that is going on in this country when we are experiencing historic crime. And she realizes that Trump's actually not really exaggerating because she has to basically correct herself and say, well, he is kind of right. The murder rate is spiking, that we do actually have a crime issue in this country. Again, it's just hilarious to watch some of these people do mental gymnastics when discussing Trump. But you can tell she did not feel good about that conference and the speech that Trump gave as she went on to talk about Trump and his comments on transgender women competing against biological women in sports. And she basically stated that it's transphobic and that that's not the right way to talk about the issue. And my first reaction to that was, how are you supposed to talk about the issue? Right? If you can't say that these are biological men competing against biological women in sports, how are you supposed to talk about issue? What are you supposed to say? Right? What are you supposed to say? These are women, like actual women competing against women in sports? Because if you say that, then that would not be accurate, right? That wouldn't be accurate, okay? You wouldn't actually really be talking about the issue and getting to the heart of why people have a problem with this, which is that you have these biological men who have advantages, physical advantages over women, dominating them in sports, right? Basically making women irrelevant, okay? Taking away spots from women. But because we live in PC world, right? We have a PC culture that is perpetuated by woke women like this woman right here. Apparently you can't have a conversation grounded in facts and reality, right? Because it might hurt people's feelings, right? You're not supposed to talk about the issue of transgender women competing against biological women in sports by saying that, yeah, we have biological men trying to compete against biological women in sports. That's not the way you're supposed to talk about it, according to this woman, right? It really blows my mind how some of these people in the mainstream liberal media take themselves so seriously when they have such a ridiculous idea of the world, right? They don't adhere to reality and facts, but they take themselves so seriously as the arbiters of truth. Everybody else is spewing lies except them. When this woman literally just said that we're not supposed to talk about the issue of men competing against women in sports by stating that men are trying to compete against women in sports. It really blows my mind. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.